Hi everyone, welcome to part 2. Okay, Carlsen has just played bishop takes h7 check. Now came king g7 and knight takes e5, f takes e5 and bishop f5 attacking the rook. So rook c6 is what Kramnik played, preparing to swing it over to the newly opened h file. And now queen e4 attacking the e pawn, which Kramnik now quite dramatically decided to sacrifice with rook h8. And at this stage, with Kramnik sacking a pawn first of all, and also offering his rook for a bishop, I was really starting to support him. Watching this game, it's very gutsy and very creative play, and very admirable, I think, when he's playing someone as great as Carlsen, who now, after thinking for a very long time, accepted the sacrifice with queen takes e5 check. And after bishop f6, he played queen e4. So now it's black who's down a pawn, and the position has opened up, which of course favors black with the bishops, and it appears he can win the pawn back almost immediately thanks to rook e8, which is what Kramnik played, with pressure on e2 once the queen moves and a potential rook on the 7th. But here white has queen g4 check, and after the only reasonable defensive move, king f8, bishop e4 saves the e pawn, and apparently does so with tempo because the rook should now move. But Kramnik had other ideas and here played c4, again offering the rook for white's very important light square bishop, and Fritz didn't like this move at all, and objectively speaking white is certainly better now. Instead of this, Fritz gave queen c8 as the best move, offering the exchange of queens to relieve the pressure, with one solid line going queen f3 because the queen's tied to defending the bishop. And now rook d6, where black has good compensation for the pawn, mostly because of his bishop pair and the offside knight here on a4. But c4 anyway is what Kramnik played. So now came bishop takes c6, and Carlsen didn't wait to be asked a third time, and as I said, white is undoubtedly better here after bishop takes c6 because he's the exchange and a pawn up, and with correct play this would definitely be a win. However, Magnus started getting into slight time trouble here, and Kramnik's fearless play must have been having some kind of psychological effect. The strength of the bishops is clear in this position. They're well placed, especially given the vulnerable white king's position, but once the white rooks penetrate they should be easily outweighed. And queen h5 is how Carlsen continued, but almost certainly better was knight c5, which is getting the knight to a much better square and ensuring play down the a file for the rooks. One line goes queen d5, which is the strongest black can hope for, and really his only move, because anything else and his disadvantage is becoming much more pronounced. So queen f3 is forced here. Now best play goes queen takes f3, e takes f3, and king g7 because of the threat of knight d7 check if bishop takes f3, in which case white is even better in the game continuation. But in this position anyway, white should be able to win, but there's a lot of play left, and even so it's surprising that Carlsen didn't choose this line, as a simplification would definitely favour him. He's very strong at the endgame, and Kramnik is as well, but he's the exchange up, so it really shouldn't have been a problem to win from this position. So queen h5 anyway is what Carlsen did play. So now came rook e5, gaining a tempo on the queen. So queen h6 check, king e7 and e4, so preserving the e pawn, but this loses a lot of white's edge in the position. Better was queen d2, and Magnus, he was playing a little bit impatiently, which is easy to do when you're up in material, but one of the many things Petrosian taught us is that it does no harm to consolidate before attacking in such positions, and queen d2 would have done this. It's probably a wiser move. But anyway, e4, and now d3 from Kramnik, wisely declining the e pawn to avoid opening up lines for the rooks. And now black is able to create connected pass pawns, but as it turned out that wasn't even necessary. We'll have a quick look at taking this pawn. If bishop takes e4, it can be proved to be just an outright blunder after queen d2, forking the b and d pawns. Best play goes c3, queen takes d4, queen takes d4, rook takes d4, c takes b2, knight takes b2, and white is easily winning in this position. Alternatively, black can capture with the rook, but now comes knight c5, and again white is miles ahead, and in actual fact black's best hope here is to give up his rook due to the threat of rook a7 check. If he tries to preserve his rook, for example with rook e5, now rook a7 check, king d6 is the best defense that black has, but now comes the tactical shot, rook d7 check, winning the queen. If bishop takes g7, then knight b7 check, and white wins. So anyway, back to the game continuation, was d3 from Kramnik. Now came queen e3, which is preparing queen a7 check in the event of rook takes e4, but Kramnik took with the bishop, equalizing on the pawns, but you know, he's still the exchange down, but he's got this powerful light square bishop. And here Fritz thinks that he does have good compensation for the exchange, but not total compensation. And with correct play, it should still be a win for white, although there's a lot of play left in the position. But now, in very bad time trouble, Carlsen blundered with knight b6, striving to finally get some activity for the knight and threatening rook a7 check with some nasty tactics with the rook and the knight. But as I said, this is a blunder. Much better was rook e1, and his advantage is starting to grow. But anyway, knight b6. So now comes bishop b7, stopping any rook a7 check ideas, discovering an attack on the queen, and also making it impossible for white to defend the knight from the black queen. And now black is winning. And Carlsen made matters much worse now with queen f4. A better continuation was rook a7, where after rook takes e3 comes rook takes b7 check, king e6, and f takes e3 with two rooks against the queen and lots of play to come. But now black's queenside pawns will be decisive, and even in the position as it is now, Fritz gives black a big advantage, well over 2 pawns, but it's preferable to the game continuation. Because after queen f4 came of course queen takes b6, and queen takes c4 is what Carlsen's idea was, making the most of a bad situation, at least getting a pawn for the knight and creating 2 isolated pawns for black. But of course it's not enough, and black is now easily winning with rook e2 and mate threats with queen takes f2. And the light square bishop here is now an absolutely killer piece. Carlsen defended with the rook f1, but moments later resigned, saying that he was defenseless against bishop d4, adding another attacker to the f2 pawn, and in actual fact forcing a mate in 8 moves at the maximum. To delay things for as long as possible, white has to play queen takes d4, but now of course queen takes d4, and the line that Fritz gave as best play for both sides goes rook ac1, d2, rook c7 check, king f8, rook takes b7, d1 queen, rook b8 check, king g7, rook g8 checks. You know, crazy moves, but it's just because it delays mate for as long as possible. King takes g8, h3, queen takes f1 check, king takes f1, and queen takes f2 is mate. So that's it anyway, a very interesting, if not flawless game from the 2 grandmasters who are ranked 1st and 3rd in the world on the current live ratings. After this win, Kramnik is tied for 1st place with Shirov, and today he'll play Ivanchuk whilst Shirov plays Anand, so we should get some more great chess and hopefully another video. So I hope you enjoyed this game anyway. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.